Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is David Zabka. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's 30 at 3 Live. What we're going to be covering today is auto standard connections. I notice some of you that I see here attending are familiar with SDS2. So you probably kind of understand what an auto standard connection is. Others that I see attending today are a little bit newer to Connect or SDS2, so you may not fully understand auto standard connections or what they are. I just wanted to cover these here briefly today so that we kind of understand what an auto standard connection actually is and what it does for us. So basically an auto standard connection is the most, what we want to try and use the most on our projects. The reason being is that these auto standard connections are set up. Most typically we want to do it right away at the beginning of the project before we start modeling. And then based on our different framing situations and what material types we have framing together, we're going to allow SDS2 Connect to determine whether it designs an end plate or clip angle or shear tab based on what you have set up for that. So for just today here, just our quick demonstration, I'm going to kind of focus in on this joint here, and I'm going to go into my 3D view here, and I'm going to orient to the particular view where we can see that just from the top down there. And I've gone into my visibility, my graphics, and turned the beams and columns to the, I believe it's called the ghost surface, so we can actually see through there and see what's going on a little bit easier for us. So we can see right now we are getting clip angle connections designed there for us, and if I just go ahead and edit one of these, we can see the connection type is set to auto standard. Okay, so how does SDS2 Connect determine that in this situation it needs to design a clip angle when the connection type is set to auto standard? What I'm going to do is go into the setup, and in our setup, first thing we have there would be auto standard connections right at the top. Now there are two parts that Connect uses to determine or look at the different framing situations here. The first would be what we call a condition. So a condition would be like beam to beam, beam to column, column to beam. Just the tabs across the top would be what we call a condition. And then the rest of these listed here on the left are what we call a scenario. So the scenario is going to include information like what material types we're framing together and how they're framing together, whether they're perpendicular or skewed, framing to the flange, the web, so on and so forth. So for our joint that we're looking at, if I want to go ahead and modify the auto standard connection, I can scroll down to wide flange beam to wide flange column. I'm framing to the flange perpendicular. When I select that, then the settings on the right determine how that connection is designed. So I have my connection type of clip angle. That's why we're getting clip angles at this point. I'm going to go ahead and set that to end plate. Now I could come down here, change the gauge, whether we get a safety connection. All these connection specifications are also found in the edit window when you have something like end plate selected. Our bolt type and bolt diameter up here we can change also. In these two things I can actually do kind of a mass change to all auto standard connections for my bolt type and bolt diameter. The way I would do that, I'm going to go ahead and do that, is I would go into bolt design criteria, and in there I have the non-moment bolt diameter and bolt type to set. For our case here, I'm going to set our bolt type to F1852N, so that would be like the A325N tension control equivalent. And then I'm going to say apply that to all auto standard connections. Basically just get a verification screen there. So I'll say yes. And now if I go back in here to the auto standards, we can see the non-moment bolt types are all set to F1852N. I'm going to say OK to this. Now, I could come up here and I could just simply click the Design All button. That's going to go through redesign all the connections. Just for time purposes, I'm not going to hit that. I'm just going to go in here and edit one of these connections. So I'm going to edit the one framing to the flange. I'm not going to change anything. Whenever I edit a connection and click OK, it basically forces a redesign on that connection. Okay, so now we can see our auto standard connection now creates a end plate connection. Okay, now just to show you that I am only affecting the beam framing to the flange, I'll go ahead and edit one of these to the web just like I did to that one to the flange, and when I clicked OK it was redesigned. Same case here. However, that's not changed because it's a different scenario. I didn't change the scenario for the wide flange beam to wide flange column web perpendicular. Okay. So maybe I do want to do that. I'm going to go in there and go ahead and make a change to that particular scenario. So I click my beam to column condition, scroll down till I find wide flange beam to wide flange column. Now web perpendicular, I'm going to go ahead and change that to an end plate. Maybe I want to use a narrow gauge there, and maybe for the safety connection I want a safety notch. Okay. Now go ahead and edit this connection in the web. Again, don't need to change anything. When I click OK, it's going to redesign that. Since it's affecting the connection on the other side, that is also redesigned for me. So now we see we get the end plate connection here. I told it that I wanted a safety notch, so we can see that it's automatically creating that safety notch for us. Okay, so that really kind of gives us a quick rundown on auto standard connections, how they function, what they do, what their purpose is here. So now, again, just like every other week here, I will go ahead and turn it over to questions. Doesn't necessarily have to be related to the topic that we've done here today. Could be related to anything else SDS2 Connect. But if you do have more questions on today's topic, also feel free for that. One question I do have here already is someone is asking, do these auto standard connections generate design calculations? Okay, the answer to that is yes. All we're doing with this auto standard connection is we're simply allowing SDS2 Connect to determine whether this is to be a clip angle or shear plate or end plate in this case based on the different framing situations. So we don't necessarily have to change each and every connection to be our standard or what we want. And I'll just go ahead and pull up the design calculations here for this. I'm going to grab the one in the web to do that on. So if I run the report here on this connection framing to the web, okay, we get the design calculations just like we would any other connection. So we have our limit states in here that we see. We also, if I want to view that extended report in Firefox, that should be the same as what we get, where we get the extra information with our formulas and whatnot there. Okay, so that can be done. So another connection here, or excuse me, question that I have is, what happens if an auto standard connection cannot work? What does the system do? So in that case, if an auto standard connection cannot work, we might do or Connect might do a couple things. One thing that it might do is it may actually fail that connection, or I believe I'll be able to show you a good example over here on this end of my structure, because I have a smaller column. I believe this is a W8 column rather than I had a W10 on the other end. So I'll just go ahead and edit this connection framing to the flange. Again, it's set to auto standard. I'm just going to say OK, so to force a redesign on that. And now we can see the connection into the web is actually an extended shear plate. Because of the end plate and forcing us to, I changed my bolt type to be the F1852N, which would have been tension control. So SDS2 Connect is actually seeing some erection clearance problems there. So it'll go ahead and extend that out past the web rather than using the end plate there. So like I said, we could get might see a failed connection, or we could see a connection possibly changed for us, like in this case there. Okay, another question, how about support for metric bolts and dimensions? Yeah, we do metric bolts. I just have this project set up to do imperial, so we're working in imperial. We could do metric if we needed to. You may have noticed in the setup earlier when I was in the bolt design criteria, and I'll just show you here, we do actually have the option here what we want to use for bolts. Do we want to use imperial bolts, metric bolts, or we can use a combination of both on the same project also. So if we're working in metric, we'd want to come in here and switch that. We'd switch our different bolt diameters and whatnot. Again, like I said, this one was just all set up for an imperial project. If you were to have started everything in a metric project, you know, we'd actually have the metric setup values in here rather than the imperial values. So we do metric. So another question here, does SDS offer some support for 2D detailing, like automatically adding connection views that can be added to sheets? So if you're asking that question, do we offer that in Revit? That's something that's not necessarily offered by us. That is actually a Revit function, and you know, with that, they do, or when you do create those 2D views, our information does show up there. And I'll just go ahead and show that real quick, like here. Maybe I'll come in here and cut a quick section view so we can see that. And sorry, I need to actually be in. Let me go here and cut a quick section view then. I'll just do it to that joint there. And if I open that section view up then, okay, so we can see all of our connection information is generated there. Now, you can go in, you can actually edit the connections from right here. It will update in the 3D view. Just like anything else in Revit, you know, it's all linked. When you make the change to one, it updates in the other. So we can see here I can edit the connection, I could make changes or whatnot. We can add We can add dimensions. So if I need to dimension these here, okay, we can add dimensions. Just like everything else we can do in Revit, we can do that with our information as well. Another thing that I'll just show you quick here, and this is a tag that I created here to do this, kind of a request by a few customers. We currently can actually tag the plate size and the angle size. So if I use my tag by category here, and I load up again, this is a tag that I've created, so if anyone's interested in it, I can send it off to you. And I'm going to the wrong spot here. Okay, so now I could go ahead and tag, like I said, those plate sizes. This will also work with angle sizes. At this point, that's really what we have it working with. We don't have it set up yet to where we can do bolt sizes and you know, rows of bolts, that sort of thing, just yet. So possibly in the future for that. Okay, more questions here. So another question is, could you assemble your connection and then use that to create the views as asked in the previous question? I guess I'm not sure what is being asked for there. I guess I assume what's being asked there would be, can you customize that connection or make changes to that and then use that to create views? Again, the answer to that should be yes. You know, all we're really doing here is we're designing the connection and we're creating the families to represent that connection then in the Revit environment. On top of that, you know, most of all the other Revit functions can be done with this. This is just simply an add-in to Revit, so we should be able to do that. So another question here, somebody is asking the question, can you show how to detail that in SDS2? So normally we kind of focus on SDS2 Connect here, but since the question came up, I'll go ahead and start SDS2 and show you guys what's going on as far as that goes. So I'm just going to go into a real simple project that I have here. It's fairly similar to what we have in the Revit environment, and just so we could kind of see the model of what we have here. Kind of just a training model, again, similar to what we have in Revit. Now, what we could do with that as far as detailing and whatnot, just a quick showing here. You can see we have connections. All these connections are really the same as what we have in Revit. All that same connection design routines and everything are used in here also. And I believe most of everything that I have in this project is already detailed. So this is just an out-of-the-box detail that SDS2 would generate for us based on the model that we've input in the 3D model. This is just the 2D drawing that we get spit out then. I can add views to this really easily. So if I wanted to add a view to this, okay, that can be done real quick, like right here. And there I have my section view then, get it labeled, called out, etc. So kind of what a 2D drawing would turn out like. Like I said, when I opened this up, this was just simply out of the box what's created for you based on your 3D models. Another question here, does every connection create an instance of a family? And the answer to that would be yes. So every connection that we see within the Revit environment is actually an instance of either a plate family or an angle family that we actually put into or load into that Revit model when you initialize the project. So second part to that question would be, is it the same family for all connections? Yeah, we really use the same families, and I'll kind of show you here. If I look in the project browser at the structural connections, these are the families that we load to create the actual connections within Revit. So we have an angle, bent plate if we're doing bent plate connections. We have a plate, which would just be really any square plate. A round plate we really only use for if you have round base plates, and then your different bolts and nuts in your washers. So that's kind of what the families look like there. Do we have any more questions here on, again, like I said, can be any topic as far as Connect related goes. Doesn't necessarily have to be on the topic that we've looked at here today. Okay, if that's it on the questions, you know, feel free if anything else comes up. Like I said, if any other questions come up, feel free to email me with anything else that might come up. We did actually have here, while I was waiting, another one came up here. Is there a way to create tables of standard connections? Currently, the answer to that would be no, there's not a way to create tables of standard connections. I know that it is something that has been requested or asked about here quite a bit since we've had this come up. So it might be something that we look into in the future, but as of right now, it's not something that we do. So. So again, feel free to email myself or give me a call, whatever, if more questions come up. Be happy to answer them. Otherwise, this is it for the 30 at 3 Live today. Hope everybody has a good day.
One of the big benefits